What is up, everyone? This is the 179 Bob Killer, and today we are doing a new type of video that I haven't done before. This is actually for a school project that I am doing, so I'm pretty excited about this, and let's just jump right into this. There are four major areas of learning that are essential to the education process. These are the multiple modes of learning, mistake making, Montessori Principles, and Bloom's Taxonomy. When combined, these aspects of learning allow for anyone to achieve more success, whether it be folding a paper airplane, studying for a test, or inventing a time machine to prevent an evil organization from creating a future dystopia that will change all life on Earth as we know it. But how exactly does this process of learning relate to anime? You see, in most anime, we find a protagonist who is exposed to a series of events that bring about character development. And it is the journey of the protagonist that viewers enjoy watching. This is true for all forms of storytelling. Oftentimes, a protagonist will have to learn some sort of lesson or moral in order to progress their development as a character. It is during these times that we find well-written characters experiencing the previously mentioned aspects of learning. Okabe Rintaro, the protagonist of the anime Steins, is no exception. But before we dive into Okabe's journey, let's review our four aspects of learning in more detail. The multiple modes of learning are a series of concepts that describe the different ways that a person learns. They are bodily kinesthetic, intrapersonal, verbal linguistic, logical mathematical, interpersonal, naturalistic, visual spatial, and musical rhythmic. The general idea here is that people tend to learn more effectively when more of these concepts are used. A great example of this is when students study while listening to music, or when a science teacher decides to bring the class outside for a nature walk. Mistake making is pretty self-explanatory. People make mistakes all the time. A couple weeks ago, I misspelled quarters in the phrase living quarters, and my girlfriend still hasn't let me hear the end of it. Needless to say, I've since learned how to spell that phrase properly. Mistake making should never be seen as failure. Each time you make a mistake in the process of learning, you obtain important information regarding how you go about solving the problem at hand. Imagine you are racing in a video game and you whip around a corner too fast, sending you flying off the track. You have now obtained knowledge that you should adjust your speed when turning around that corner. This knowledge can also be applied to every other corner that you might encounter in the future. Montessori principles are best summed up into three areas: point of interest, self-correcting feedback, and constant learning. Usually we see these principles used in specialized schools to provide a new method of learning as opposed to the lecture-style format that most of us have been brought up on. But today, I'm applying it to anime. Last but not least, we have Bloom's Taxonomy, which provides a structure for individuals to learn more effectively. The structure has 6 steps: remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. The idea behind this pyramid shape is that in order to learn most effectively, a person must start at the bottom and work their way up. Think of this as walking before you run. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. Major spoilers for Steins Gate, so if you haven't seen it already, I'd highly recommend watching it before continuing this video. You have been warned. Okabe is a college student and self-proclaimed mad scientist. He constantly is creating new gadgets in his laboratory, which consists of the upper floor of an old CRT shop that he rents. Through his continuous experimentation, Okabe eventually creates a machine that can send messages back in time, which is called D-Mail. This sets off a string of events that eventually leads to a dystopian future where an evil organization named Saren rules over everything. So how does Okabe overcome this future?
んおどうした消えてるバナナがバカだ
Hopping back over to the multiple modes of learning, we see Okabe hit quite a few of our modes. A lot of these appear in many more areas than will be mentioned here. Verbal linguistic is covered through the constant arguing and debating that Okabe does throughout the show. Most prominently, he learns just how much of a genius Kritsu is during her lecture at his college. Interpersonal is conveyed by Okabe's constant leadership and acceptance of the new lab members. It isn't long before Okabe creates an entire team of people working on his D-mail experiments. Logical mathematical is covered when Okabe decides to continue on with his D-mail experiments. Through each experiment, Okabe is able to learn more about how much the present can be changed by altering the past. Visual spatial is covered as Okabe learns about world lines and how they operate. Suzuha uses a rope to show how world lines are woven together, all eventually leading to the same end. But it is possible to make a big enough change to hop from one major world line to another, with a different end. Bodily kinesthetic is covered through the actual physical motions that Okabe uses during each experiment. This is most prominent when we see Okabe trying to escape sarin. He repeats the same day over and over again, changing his actions and movements as he attempts to achieve a better outcome. Lastly, intrapersonal is covered again through Okabe's constant time traveling. His learning is self-directed, and he sets goals to achieve, even if they appear to be unreachable, like saving his childhood friend Mayuri from certain death. Not all of the multiple modes were covered here, but that is okay. As mentioned earlier, learning still happens regardless of how many modes you use, but you'll learn more effectively with each mode that you add on.
あれマユシーの懐中止まっちゃってる。おかしいな。さっきネジ巻いたばっかりなのに。
As we discussed earlier, mistake making is vital to the learning process. And oh boy, does Okabe make some mistakes. Arguably his biggest mistake, killing Krisu while attempting to prevent World War III, ends up leading to the events of Steins Gate Zero, the sequel to Steins Gate. It is through this process that Okabe is able to learn how to properly conquer time and achieve the true ending of Steins Gate.
あとは携帯にメールが
そろそろいいんじゃないかな。
Okabe works in what he calls the Future Gadget Laboratory, a place where he and his friends make what he refers to as future gadgets for the betterment of mankind. This is where Montessori Principles shine. Okabe's point of interest is inventing. He likes combining things together and experimenting with how they work. This is how he developed the phone microwave, the machine that allows him to send text messages back in time. Self-correcting feedback is shown when Okabe initially attempts to change the actions of Moeka. He quickly learns through multiple attempts that Moeka only listens to the orders of someone known as FB. He is then able to shift his focus from using Moeka's phone to tracking down this FB person. Constant learning is featured through Okabe's repetition of sending his memories into the past. As mentioned when discussing his intrapersonal learning, Okabe relives the same day over and over and over again, desperately trying to save Mayuri. It is through these hundreds of tries that Okabe is eventually able to discover a way to save her.
どう？タイムマシンは治りそう。
明日までにはなんとか
すごいね。特艦コーチとはいえ。
ダルの実力は折り紙付きだ
These steps to learning are best reflected during the creation of the time leap machine. Both Krisu and Okabe remember what they have learned about sending text messages into the past, primarily the necessity to squeeze data into a small space. they both understand the process of using Saren's black holes to compress data. They apply this knowledge to the D-mail experiments and Saren's experiments that were uncovered. They analyze how sending humans and objects through a black hole turned them into blobs of gel. They evaluated the difficulty of sending objects through time, and turned to sending brain data. And after all of that, they were able to create a time machine that could break down a person's brain data, send it through a black hole, and transport it to the brain of that person from the day before. As you see, learning is a huge part of Okabe's journey in Steins Gate. Without the knowledge that he gained, Okabe would never have been able to defeat Saren and achieve peace for his friends. And of course, Steins Gate isn't the only anime out there that features characters who learn. In fact, you can find learning in every medium that is capable of telling a story. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to tell me if you liked this video and want to see others like it in the future. I'll see you next time.